You've been taught your whole life that being available makes you a good person, that showing up, answering the phone, replying fast, forgiving quickly, and always being there for others is love, that the more present you are, the more valuable you become. But here's the brutal truth. The more available you are, the easier you are to forget. People don't fear losing you because they know you'll always come back. You're safe. You're predictable. You're emotionally cheap. You've trained the world to believe that you'll never walk away, no matter how little they give you, how often they ignore you, or how deeply they hurt you. And this is why they don't respect you. Not because you're not worthy, but because you stopped acting like you were. Let that land. You gave everything, your time, your energy, your soul, thinking that love would grow from that soil. But instead, the opposite happened. People got used to having you, and that comfort killed your presence. You weren't rare anymore. You were background noise. Carl Jung said that when psychic energy is scattered, the self disappears. That's what you've done. You diluted your own power so much, trying to please, to fix, to be chosen, that your energy no longer commands attention. It no longer fills a room. You're there, but you're not felt. And that's why you're ignored. This didn't happen overnight. It happened in small moments. The time you laughed at the joke that hurt you. The time you said, "It's okay," when it wasn't. The time you showed up for someone who wouldn't even text you back. Every time you swallowed your needs just to be liked, just to keep the peace, just to not be left alone. You told the world, "I don't matter," and the world believed you. Now you sit in silence wondering why people don't check in, why you're not a priority, why they only come around when they need something. You feel invisible, but the truth is even worse than that. You trained them to see you that way. You didn't just disappear. You erased yourself. Slowly, politely, with a smile. And now you're exhausted. You don't even know who you are when no one needs you. You confuse being wanted with being used. You think that love means never leaving, even when it's destroying you. And what's left of you is a shell of a person who used to have fire in their voice, boundaries in their presence, and weight in their absence. But here's the thing no one tells you. The world only values what it can lose. People only respect presence when they know it's earned, not guaranteed. And that's why you need to stop showing up where you're taken for granted. You need to become unavailable, not to punish others, but to protect what's left of you. Because right now you're bleeding energy into people who treat it like it's free. It's not. Your attention is sacred. Your time is limited. Your emotional space is not a trash bin for everyone's chaos. But the longer you act like it is, the longer they'll treat you like it is. You think that if you stop being available, people will walk away. And maybe they will. But if someone leaves just because you stopped giving without limits, they were never there for you. They were there for what they could take. Jung understood that individuation, the process of becoming whole, begins when you pull back from the crowd, when you separate from the roles, masks, and personas that kept you safe but small. You're not here to be emotionally digestible. You're not here to be convenient. You're not here to make sure everyone else feels okay while you slowly disappear. You're here to be felt, to be respected, to be remembered. And that starts when you become someone people are afraid to lose. If this message woke something up inside you, comment below. I will never beg to be seen again. And don't forget to subscribe. Your journey is just beginning. When you stop replying right away, when you don't answer every call, when you leave the message on read, when you say no, when you walk away without guilt, when you stop needing to explain yourself to people who never cared to understand you in the first place, that's when the shift begins. That's when your silence becomes louder than your presence ever was. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who walk into a room and command it, who speak little but say everything, who don't need to argue to be heard. Why do they have that effect? Because they don't give their energy to everyone. Because they don't explain. Because they don't apologize for existing. And because they've made it very clear, they can walk away at any moment, and you will feel it if they do. That's power. That's respect. And that's what you've lost. But you can get it back. It starts when you recognize that your availability isn't love. It's fear. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being needed. And as long as you operate from that fear, you'll keep shrinking and people will keep stepping over you like you were never there. But you were there. You always were. And they should have known that. They should have felt that. But they didn't. Because you made it too easy not to. This is where everything changes, not with a scream, not with a fight, but with a decision. The decision to stop showing up for people who don't look for you. The decision to stop giving access to a presence they never learned to honor. The decision to let your absence teach them what your presence never could. And that is what we'll dive into next. Because now that you understand why no one fears losing you, it's time to discover how to become unforgettable again, without saying a single word. You thought giving more would finally make them stay. You thought being kind, being available, being the one who always says yes would earn you a place in someone's life. But all it earned you was silence, distance, disrespect. Because here's the truth no one warned you about. The love you give without balance doesn't create connection. It creates absence. When you give everything and expect nothing, you teach others to expect everything and give nothing. You're not invisible because people are cruel. You're invisible because you've made yourself too easy to reach, too easy to use, too easy to ignore. You've become emotional background noise, predictable, familiar, safe. And in a world addicted to novelty and challenge, safety without boundaries is not love. It's irrelevance. The more you offer without limits, the less anyone sees you. Because your presence stopped feeling valuable. It became routine. It became silent. Carl Jung understood this dynamic in a way most never will. He believed that people unconsciously respond not to your words, but to the energy you project. And if your energy is always open, always giving, always saying, "I'm here if you need me," you stop being a person. You become a tool, a function, a convenience. Think about the last time someone truly admired you, respected you, paused before speaking to you. When was it? And now compare that to the dozens of times people texted you only when they needed something. The times they left your messages unanswered until it benefited them to reply. The times they disappeared after you gave everything and reappeared like nothing happened. This isn't bad luck. This is a pattern, a deeply unconscious one. You have been loving people in a way that erases you, because somewhere along the line you learned that to be loved, you must be needed, and to be needed, you must be useful. So you became useful. Emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. You became the one who listens, the one who understands, the one who never asks for too much. And slowly, piece by piece, you disappeared. And the most painful part? You called this empathy, but it wasn't empathy. It was fear. The fear that if you didn't give enough, love would vanish. That if you stopped showing up, you'd be forgotten. So you overcompensated. You overfunctioned. You overextended. And now you're here, exhausted, empty, wondering why people don't value you the way you value them. The truth? They were never taught to. And you were the one who trained them. You see, when love is unbalanced, it stops being a bridge and becomes a trap. One person giving, the other taking. One pouring, the other drinking. One bending, the other standing tall. That's not love. That's self-erasure. Real love honors balance. It respects boundaries. It listens when you say enough. And it fears your absence because your presence is rare. But when you're always present, always agreeable, always accessible, no one fears losing you. And that's where it dies. Not with betrayal, not with abandonment, but with quiet indifference. People don't leave you with fireworks. They fade. Not because you weren't enough, but because they never had to earn your enoughness. Jung often spoke of projection. How we see in others, what we cannot face in ourselves. And many of the people you've tried to love deeply were projecting their own fears, insecurities, and needs onto you. They didn't see you. They saw what you gave them. And when the giving stopped, so did their interest. You were never truly loved, only needed. And if that line cuts deep, good. That's where the healing begins. Because you cannot be fully loved by someone who never took the time to know who you are without your usefulness. You cannot be respected when you've never required effort. You cannot be chosen when you've made yourself always available. So here's what has to happen now. You have to reclaim your presence, not by becoming cold, not by pretending not to care, but by becoming rare, intentional, grounded, by saying, "I'm not here to be your lifeline. I'm not here to fix your mess. I'm not here to make you feel okay while I silently collapse." You have to stop watering deserts hoping for flowers. You have to stop sacrificing your peace for people who wouldn't notice your absence until they need something again. Because your energy is currency. And right now you're giving it away like it's worthless. You're investing in people who will never offer a return. And the result is what you're feeling right now. Fatigue, disconnection, that gut-wrenching ache of being seen, only when you're useful. But there is a way out. It starts with pulling back, with silence, with space, with saying no, with not replying, with not explaining, with not rescuing, with not fixing, with not showing up for the 5th time in a row while they forget you the second they feel okay again. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. So stop tolerating what drains you. Stop allowing your kindness to be a cage. Stop letting your empathy be your downfall. You are not here to be the emotional cushion for people who refuse to grow. You are not here to be the predictable, ever-available, always smiling version of yourself, just to maintain a sense of connection. You are here to be felt, to be known, to be remembered. But that only happens when you stop giving love like it's a bribe for staying. From this point on, your love must come with boundaries, with self-respect, with silence when your presence is taken for granted, and most of all, with distance when you're only loved for what you provide. Because until you pull back, no one will ever know how much of you they had, and no one will ever fear losing what they've never had to fight for. Now the question becomes, can you handle the silence that comes after you finally stop giving? That's where we'll go next. Because the next part of your power isn't in giving less, it's in feeling whole without needing to be needed. You think you're keeping the peace, but you're just silencing yourself. Every time you hold back what hurts you, every time you pretend something didn't bother you, every time you choose to stay quiet instead of speaking your truth, you think you're avoiding conflict. But what you're really doing is disappearing. You don't realize it, but you're training the people around you. Every time you let something slide, you're teaching them, this doesn't matter to me. Every time you forgive without accountability, you're saying, you can do it again. And every time you put someone else's comfort above your own pain, you're showing them, I'm not a priority. You think it's strength. You think it's maturity. You think it's the right thing to do. But what you're really doing is handing over your voice in exchange for momentary safety. And that safety, it's a lie. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the part of us that contains everything we deny, repress, and disown. And right now, your shadow is full of silence, full of swallowed anger, full of fake smiles, full of nights where you stayed awake replaying a conversation where you said nothing when you should have screamed. This isn't peace. This is self-abandonment in disguise. Your silence didn't create harmony. It created resentment. Your tolerance didn't make you noble. It made you invisible. And the worst part? The people around you don't even know who you really are, because you've never shown them. They know the version of you that accommodates, that agrees, that absorbs, that disappears. But they don't know the version that's hurting, the version that's screaming inside, the version that's tired of always being the one who bends. And that's why they keep stepping over you, because you taught them that there are no consequences, that you'll stay no matter how bad it gets, that your threshold for pain is infinite. And the moment people believe that, the moment they feel safe in your silence, they stop being careful with you, not because they're evil, but because they're human. Human nature responds to what's reinforced. And if your behavior reinforces the idea that you'll never leave, that you'll never confront, that you'll never impose pain, then no one will fear hurting you. And what isn't feared is often violated. That's the brutal reality. You want people to treat you better? Start by being honest about your pain. Start by imposing discomfort when someone crosses a line. Start by letting them feel the consequences of what they do to you. Not by yelling, not by retaliating, but by withdrawing your presence. Because presence is power. And absence, real, deliberate absence, is even more powerful. But you've been too scared to do that, haven't you? Write in the comments, I choose my worth over their comfort, and hit that subscribe button. Because here, your healing has a voice. You've convinced yourself that if you speak up, you'll lose people. That if you pull back, you'll be alone. That if you stop making everything okay for everyone, they'll walk away. And maybe they will. But here's what you need to ask. What's the point of being surrounded by people who only stay because you keep betraying yourself to keep them comfortable? That's not love. That's a performance. And you're the only one losing sleep to keep it running. Jung taught that repression of the shadow doesn't make it go away. It makes it stronger. The pain you don't express doesn't dissolve. It metastasizes. It turns into anxiety, into numbness, into that quiet ache you feel in your chest every time someone laughs at something that hurt you, and you smile anyway. Eventually, you don't just resent them. You resent yourself for staying silent, for tolerating it, for being so easy to dismiss. And here's what nobody tells you. The longer you hide your pain, the less others believe you even have any. That's why when you finally explode, they say you're being dramatic. That's why when you finally set a boundary, they act like you're the problem. Because to them, you were never in pain. You were always fine. You made sure of it. So now you have two choices. Keep pretending. Keep smiling. Keep being the nice one who holds everything together while quietly falling apart. Or break the script. Let your silence end. Let your discomfort rise. Let yourself be misunderstood. Let people feel the sting of not having constant access to your peace. Because if they don't feel that, they'll never know how much of you they had. And yes, it will feel like you're doing something wrong, because you've spent your whole life equating silence with safety. But here's the truth. Your silence hasn't protected you. It's erased you. You've been living behind a mask that says, "I'm okay," while every part of you is begging for space to breathe, to scream, to be seen. So what happens when you finally stop hiding? What happens when you allow your pain to be felt instead of swallowed? When you stop protecting people from the consequences of their actions? That's where we're going next. Because the next step isn't just about speaking. It's about becoming someone who no longer fears being seen for who they really are. Someone who can say, "This hurt me," and not apologize for it. Someone who can say, "This is my limit," and not flinch when people walk away. Because that's what reclaiming your power actually looks like. Not in how loud you get, but in how unwilling you become to keep bleeding in silence. You believe you're being present, always showing up, always answering, always being there, no matter the time, no matter the cost. You think your consistency shows love. That being available proves your worth. But in the eyes of those who receive you without effort, your constant presence has turned into something else. White noise. You're no longer felt. You're expected. You're no longer appreciated. You're assumed. You believe your availability brings closeness, but the truth is it kills your gravity. What is always within reach loses its value, not because people are ungrateful, but because human nature forgets to cherish what doesn't risk being taken away. Carl Jung spoke of psychic energy and how it needs focus, boundaries, and intentionality. When your energy is scattered, you lose psychological weight. You become less of a presence and more of a background character, a comfort, not a force. Your availability turned you into wallpaper in your own relationships. They don't fear losing you, not because they don't care, but because they've never felt the absence of your presence. You're always there, always explaining, always forgiving, always coming back, even when you shouldn't. And that kind of loyalty becomes a prison, not for them, for you. Think about it. How many people in your life know that you will always respond, that you'll always say yes, that you'll be the one to fix, to help, to listen, even when you're the one drowning? You think you're building connections, but you're building a trap, and you're the only one inside. The tragedy? You've confused availability with love. You thought proximity meant significance, but just because someone can reach you doesn't mean they value you. In fact, the easier you are to access, the less they stop to ask, "Am I worthy of this?" You've removed the friction, the tension, the effort, and what has no resistance becomes forgettable. Let that sit with you. When someone knows you'll always be there, they stop thinking about what they do to keep you. And when they stop thinking about that, they stop investing. And when they stop investing, the relationship dies. Even if the interaction continues, people can still talk to you, still laugh with you, still ask for things, but the connection is dead, because there is no mystery, no pull, no challenge, no cost, just routine, just assumption. And this is where you start to fade, not just from their lives, but from yourself. You forget how it feels to be missed. You forget how it feels to be chosen, not needed, not used, but genuinely chosen. And over time, you begin to believe that maybe this is what you deserve, that maybe being invisible is your normal, but it's not. Your problem isn't that you're too kind. It's that you've been kind without limits, kind to people who never earned your trust, Kind to those who tested you and never paid the price. Kind to the point of disappearance. This is not virtue. This is self-erasure. And the worst part? You've mistaken all of this for strength. You think being emotionally available to everyone proves your resilience. But real strength? Real presence? It comes from knowing when not to show up. It comes from silence, from withdrawal, from being able to disappear on purpose and knowing your absence will echo louder than any word you could say. That's the presence you lost. That's the presence you must rebuild. Carl Jung said that individuation, the journey to becoming whole, requires stepping away from the collective, separating, disidentifying, returning to your core. And that's exactly what you need to do now. You need to stop responding to every message. You need to stop picking up the phone every time it rings. You need to stop showing up before anyone even notices you were gone. You need to become scarce, not to manipulate, but to remember what it means to feel yourself again. When was the last time you sat with your own thoughts without the noise of others? When was the last time you said no, not out of anger, but out of respect for your own energy? When was the last time someone had to wait for you? Not because you were playing games, but because you were no longer available on demand? You've trained the world to expect you everywhere all the time, and now it's time to retrain it. With space, with silence, with absence. Because here's the truth. Your value is not in how often you show up. It's in what happens when you stop. The people who truly see you, they will feel that absence. They will pause. They will reflect. They will reach out with intention, not just convenience. They will notice, maybe for the first time, how much of you they took for granted. And the others? They'll drift. They'll fall off. They'll disappear. Let them. Not everyone deserves to keep what they never worked to hold. Not everyone deserves the version of you that bled itself dry just to be accepted. Not everyone should be able to say they knew you, not when they never really did. So from now on, your presence must be earned. Not because you're arrogant, but because you've spent too long giving it away for free. And if that scares you, good. That fear is a sign that your soul is waking up, that your identity is tired of being tied to how much you give, that your worth is finally demanding boundaries. Because the moment your absence has more impact than your presence ever did, that's when you've reclaimed yourself. But here's what comes next. Now that you've pulled back, now that you've stopped giving on autopilot, now that you've created space, what are you going to do with it? That's what we explore in the next part, because silence is only powerful if you know how to use it. And next, we'll discover how to turn your distance into the most magnetic form of presence you've ever known. Let me know in the comments. They lost me the moment I found myself. And subscribe for more truths they never wanted you to hear. You thought that if you stayed long enough, gave enough, forgave enough, loved hard enough, people would never leave. You believed that your presence, constant, reliable, unquestioning, would make you unforgettable. But what you didn't see is that presence without distance turns into noise. That availability without boundaries turns into invisibility. That loyalty without limits turns into weakness in the eyes of those who take you for granted. The truth is brutal. No one respects what they believe they can't lose. Carl Jung understood something most people avoid their whole lives. That transformation begins not when we gain something, but when we're willing to lose. Lose comfort, lose validation, lose people who were never really there for us to begin with. Because here's the raw truth no one wants to face. The only people who will leave you because you set boundaries are the ones who were benefiting from your lack of them. The moment you stop being so emotionally accessible, so easy to reach, so predictable, something terrifying happens for those who fed on your silence. They lose control, and they panic. They lash out. They tell you you've changed, that you're cold, that you're selfish. But they're not mourning your absence. They're mourning their ability to control you. That's not loss, that's exposure. You've spent years being the person who stayed, the one who fixed, the one who endured, the one who made excuses for others, the one who kept giving long after they stopped deserving. You believed that endurance was love, that sacrifice was proof of loyalty, but endurance is not love when it's survival. Sacrifice is not virtue when it's self-erasure. And loyalty means nothing when it's never been reciprocated. So now you've pulled back, you've become unavailable, and you're waiting for something to change. But here's what no one tells you. The first thing that will happen when you reclaim yourself is loneliness. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because the ecosystem that thrived on your self-abandonment will start to collapse. And that collapse feels like grief. It feels like silence. It feels like waking up in a life where the phone doesn't ring, where the texts slow down, where the people you carry don't even ask why you're gone. And in that silence, you'll be tempted to go back, to apologize for protecting yourself, to explain why you pulled away, to resume the role just to feel wanted again. But don't, because what's happening isn't rejection, it's purification. You're watching the dust settle, you're watching the noise fade, you're watching the people who were never really there fall away. And in that empty space, something powerful happens. You start to hear yourself again, not the voice that everyone else expected from you, not the version that adjusted, bent, softened, just to stay needed, but your real voice, the one you buried beneath the noise of trying to belong. And that voice will whisper truths you forgot, that you were never hard to love, they were just not capable, that your value doesn't depend on how much you offer, that being feared for your absence is not cruelty, it's clarity, that the people who deserve your presence will never take it for granted. You'll begin to see that the power wasn't in being everywhere for everyone, it was in becoming scarce, intentional, sovereign, that the more selective you become, the more powerful your presence grows, that your energy is not for mass consumption, it's sacred, and it should only be shared with those who honor it. So if you're feeling empty right now, good. That emptiness isn't a void, it's a clearing. It's a fire that burned everything false. It's the silence that finally makes space for your rebirth. Carl Jung wrote, "In each of us there is another whom we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way we see ourselves. That version of you, the real you, is waking up now. The one who doesn't chase, the one who doesn't beg, the one who doesn't shrink for love, the one who knows that presence without purpose is self-betrayal, the one who will never again allow their light to be dimmed for someone else's comfort. So, what comes next? You become the one who no longer needs to be needed to feel worthy. You become the one who disappears and is remembered. You become the one who walks away, and the world feels it. You become someone people are afraid to lose, not because you punish, not because you play games, but because you finally remembered who you are. And once you do, you will never again settle for a life that demands your silence in exchange for belonging. Thank you for staying through this entire journey. Thank you for choosing yourself even if it's painful. And thank you for finally realizing that your presence, when it is grounded, scarce, and sacred, is unforgettable. If this message resonated with you in any way, write in the comments, "I will not shrink for love ever again." Let the world know you're done being silent. And don't stop here. The next video is waiting, not just to inform you, but to remind you that your healing doesn't end with awareness. It begins when you act on it. I'll see you there.